In today's episode of Today in World War II, February 20th, the Soviets penetrate the Finnish second defense line, the V line, as deep as 1 kilometer. The German battlecruiser Admiral Scheer raids into the Indian Ocean and gets a couple of prizes. The Battle of Java Sea begins in the waters of Indonesia, and it's going to end badly, let's put it this way, for the Allies. An American Butch wins a Medal of Honor off American carrier. Rommel finishes his inspection tour of the Atlantic Wall and declares to Hitler, it's ready. And the Marines finally on Iwo Jima on the second day of their landing take one of two airfields on the island. Let's get started. Okay, so on February 20th, 1940, the Soviet troops are continuing to make progress on the Karelian Isthmus. If you remember, they were stopped for 2.5 months by the Mannerheim line, which recently crumbled. The Finns retreated a few miles north and formed their second defense line, which was the V line. But obviously, it was prepared very hastily. The Soviets had a massive armored fist and artillery coming at them. It's very difficult to stop them anyway. They were getting the momentum now, and they penetrated the V1 line as deep as a kilometer in a few places. So this put the provincial capital of Viipuri, or as the Russians will soon call it, Vyborg, in great danger of being captured. And here's the problem. The Finns had contained them above Lake Ladoga on the this is the eastern borders. It was mostly wilderness there. There wasn't much in the way of roads. The Soviets were more road bound at this time in their existence. So the main corridor of their attack was the Karelian Peninsula. It's bordered on both sides. On the one side by the Gulf of Finland, the other side with Lake Ladoga. So it was a very narrow territory. The Finns could, well, easily is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, but could defend it. But once they got past Viipuri or Vyborg, then the whole Finnish countryside opens up. And so it's dicey after that. So very, very nervous time for the Finns at this time. But I don't want this to be a nervous time for you, okay? Because you don't need to be nervous if you do the following thing. If you click the subscribe button, click the bell that will notify you when I drop a new video. By adding to my subscriber account, the the algorithm will reward me and show my content to more people. So I appreciate you doing me a solid. On February 20th, 1941, the German heavy cruiser Admiral Scheer was not doing a solid to Allied merchant shipping. In fact, it had moved from the South Atlantic into the Indian Ocean, and it took a couple of big prizes. It sank a Greek steamer, the Gregorius C, and more importantly, because oil tankers are always valued above any other merchant class of ship, it captured the British tanker, the British Advocate, west of the Seychelles Islands and the Indian Ocean. That was a big deal because, oil was the most prized natural resource you could find. And so they had a good day. The Admiral Scheer had a good day this day. But again, wasn't that the legacy of the German surface fleet anyway? It was they were going after the low-hanging fruit, the Arctic seals they could club without danger. They didn't want to go up against the RAF. Excuse me, not the RAF, but the Royal Navy, right? Well, if you can like and leave a comment for my video, once again, just a quick reminder, I would appreciate it. Thank you. On November 20th, 1942, the Battle of Java Sea began. It was a naval battle off of Java, hence the name, in the Java Sea. The combined Australian, British, Dutch, American fleet was still trying to hang on, still trying to take out the transports because they knew they couldn't beat the Japanese on land. Once the Japanese landed, it was over. Their only hope to win the battle was to sink those transports while they were still in the high seas, destroying and drowning the Japanese troops and sinking their equipment. Well, they had a few problems doing that. Number one, which was that they were incompetent at night battles. The Japanese, on the other hand, were masters of the night fighting. With float planes, with their tactics, with their extremely long range torpedoes. It was a foregone conclusion. The American fleet was being commanded by a Dutch admiral. There was communication problems, and let's put it this way, it did not end well. Most of the ships were sank. The American the cruisers were sank. The most notably was the USS Houston was sunk, and those sailors, the ones that survived, had to endure very bad, very horrible hardship for the next 3 years until they were liberated. Um, Japanese occupation was not good. Statistically speaking, only about 90%, I mean, 90, about 10%, 10-15% of the POWs survived to the end of the war. On February 20th, 1942, an American fighter pilot off of the USS Lexington aircraft carrier. It was in the South Pacific with the Yorktown. They were raiding Japanese outposts. In this case, they had been raiding, Tulagi. Uh, Guadalcanal wasn't really a factory yet, but Tulagi was a seaplane base. They were taken out. They were going after shipping there, just reminding the Japanese they were there and they were not going away, and they were going to have to sink those carriers to be able to conquer the Americans in the Pacific. In this case, they sent a lot of land-based bombers to attack the carriers. They were using the Japanese Betty bomber, a four-engine bomber, and Edward Butch O'Hare, was credited with shooting down five Japanese bombers in these attacks. He was given now credit for five kills, and after the dust settled, when they got back, he was recommended for citation for bravery, and he was given the Medal of Honor for his bravery. Unfortunately, Butch O'Hare did not survive the war, sadly speaking. And on February 20th, 1944, Rommel had been given a new command. He was commanding the French uh, theater, and he completed his 4-day inspection tour of the Atlantic Wall. And he reported to Der Fuhrer, Hitler, that the German coastal defenses were ready. Hmm. Considering how they lasted 1 day in the invasion, I think the word ready is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. In fact, I don't think the word ready lifted anything at all, because you think about all the millions of dollars, or Deutsche Marks, I guess it was, that were spent on that, all the millions of mines, all the tons of concrete that were poured into those defenses, and they lasted a day, right? So I'm not sure. I think Rommel, if he could go back and get a mulligan on that, I wonder if he would use the word ready or not. Well, we'll never know, right? Because he had to he was forced to commit suicide later, because he was involved in the plot to kill Hitler in 44 later on. And finally, on February 20th, 1945, this is day two of the American invasion of Iwo Jima. The Marines took the first airfield. There was two airfields on Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was shaped like a pork chop, and so on the left side, uh, you had Mount Suribachi, which was the main height, and then on the other side you had hills and mountainous terrain until you got to the other coast. In the middle, the only place where you could actually have any airfields, the Japanese had built two airfields there. The American Marines took the first airfield, Motoyama, and I can't describe in words how every step they took was contested, and they were made to pay the price. Again, I talked about this yesterday in the video, but they were ingenious in the network of tunnels and caves they built. The Marines would take out a bunker, and then all these things were interconnected, and then they would go through thinking that they were safe, and then the Japanese would come in, pull away the dead bodies, the Japanese that were killed, and they would pop up and start firing again. So they had to take out these bunkers, same bunkers, over and over and over again. And you can imagine how. And meanwhile, on Mount Suribachi and on the Japanese hills and caves on the other side of the island, they were getting bombarded with mortars and artillery, and it was hell on earth, like I said. But that's it for today. I want to thank you for watching this video, and I will talk to you tomorrow.